Okay, hey guys. So I have an author vlog for you. I've been stuck. I basically took a last week off mostly from writing, for book two, simply because I had, like I explained in the last video. I think I put it up on Instagram because I couldn't log into the YouTube account on my phone. It was being really weird, so I just uploaded it as an IGTV video on the Vengeance Book official Instagram. I think that's what it is. I could be wrong, but if you didn't see that, basically, I've been getting kind of stuck on trying to actually flesh out what I'm writing. So I have the blueprints down and I have the basic like fight scene layout, the final scenes, including the fight scene, the slowdown, the closure, and the epilogue, all kind of scripted out for the most part. But I haven't been taking that step to actually, writing the draft version of it. This is like the draft I have written down, and I'm advancing to the draft. But as I've been explaining in all the videos prior, where I'm trying to do the most in the first draft portion of it. So I'm trying to essentially make less work for myself when I start from the beginning again and start writing and editing, cleaning up and expanding, and just doing housekeeping on it as I go, and indulging. So I take a paragraph and I feel that paragraph, the descriptors of that paragraph are cut short, or I was very clearly rushing through the section. So I'm going to expand, I'm going to exposit some more, and I'm going to get all the details that I need to, that I want to. I'm going to make sure the dialogue is fixed, yada yada. That's my first draft run through. Whereas what I'm working on right now is the rough draft. But as I've been working on the rough draft, I have been trying to make it as close to a rough draft as I can when it comes to descriptions, dialogue, and just general flow. I'm trying to take each paragraph and each page more seriously than just a rough outline. I'm a fucking dog. Uh, if that makes any sense. So I'm saving myself work in the future by putting more effort into it the first time through. However, where I'm at right now, I'm at the point where I'm just kind of like, I'm overthinking a lot of it, and I'm finding myself rushing through, because I've essentially, it's hard to explain. Like, I've been working on this in every single chapter that I do has been like in overtime. Like, one chapter might get me. I might take like a month to get through one chapter because I only give myself a few days a week, and I probably only give myself 6 to 10 hours a week, sometimes every week, to write, which isn't a lot of time because I keep myself in the same mental placement if I write. Like, I don't get home from work, sit down at my desk and write. I get up in the morning, I go to the public library, and I write because that's a space where I can disconnect myself from any and all distractions except for my phone, which is usually my 10-minute break in between writing bursts. I take a break on my phone, check some stuff, reply to some messages, whatever have you, then I get back to the grind. And I do that for about 2.5 hours a few times a week whenever I can. If I go into work at 3 o'clock, then I go in at 11 and I leave at about 1:30, but I give myself till 2 o'clock as a block of time. But since I have to leave for work at 2:30, I usually get out of there at about 1:30 so I can get home, get changed, reset my mental, and then get ready for a day at work. Then I get home and I do my, whatever stuff after. So I only give myself a few hours a day to write whenever I can. So it's not that much, but it's all part of the process where while I'm at work and while I'm at home, I'm constantly filling my phone with additional notes of stuff I've been writing or am going to write. And I'm basically writing the details on my phone, which then get inserted later. So I'm always working on it. I'm just not always sitting down and working on it. You know what I mean? So where I am right now, I have the fight scene that I'm doing right now scripted out, but I noticed that as I'm trying to go through and actually fill out the details and take the two-sentence description of a physical interaction, and where I branched out into one paragraph of that interaction, I'm skimping details and I'm finding it hard to actually connect the dots of movement between characters and their interaction. I'm having kind of a brain block when it comes to doing the fight scenes, and I'm just kind of skipping the details. And I'm getting mad at myself because I'm doing that, but at the same time, I think I kind of need to do that so I can get to the end and actually start back from the beginning and clean up. Because I know there's a lot of stuff I'm going to have to clean up when I get there. Just a lot of like making sure character dialogues, attitudes, and impressions are accurate to what I assign them to be later on, because you give a character a first impression, but then you realize as you go later on that you need to adjust that first impression to match the references later on and you really kind of grow with the character a little bit more as you flesh them out later in the story. So you have to go back and make sure that they still align with what they turn into, and also drop in like Easter eggs, foreshadowing, and yada yada. So, but again, like I said, I usually try to go through and do as much of that. I've been trying to do as much of that as possible the first time through, as opposed to trying to remember to do it and stick to my notes later. But I'm at the point right now where I need to kind of just get it as a draft form and get to the end of the book so I can organize everything I have and actually get the final solidified ending so I can go back to the beginning and do it. So I'm kind of struggling with that right now, but I am excited because I had a point where I figured out some stuff at work today. There's essentially a point during this fight scene where a character removes himself from the fight, but they're still physically there and they're not interacting with the fight and they're not talking. I'm not going to explain that really, but I kind of did that as a mental placeholder to where this character is removed for this portion of the fight and there's a good reason for it, which we're semi aware of, but I'm not explaining it. And they're just kind of like, well, why? When a reader will be reading that, they go, why are they just standing off to the side, fucking mumbling to themselves with their eyes closed? What are they doing? And then it becomes apparent, but then it goes, oh. Then I was thinking to myself, I could absolutely handle that in a better way. So I thought about that today, and I found a better way to handle it, which does make sense. But now I need to go back and rework some of the stuff I had previously written to get to where we are, and then insert this piece into there. And it's basically just like dealing with a huge 10,000 piece puzzle where you can modify the pieces as you go to make them fit, but sometimes you fuck up and you got to get a new piece and make it all work. It's really complicated. So that's what I'm doing right now for writing. But I have on my desktop open right now Hibaloma, which is technically finished and published, but it's the shortest of all the stories at just over 100 pages. And I even increased the font by zero point 0.5. I ran it at 11 font instead of 10.5, which are all the other books are published in 10.5. It's 11 font and 1.5 spacing. So it's the shortest of all the stories because it's the most abridged. There's not a whole lot of direct interaction for the first couple chapters because it's building history of this character's mother who plays a lot into their story later that we get to see. But I do kind of gloss over a lot of stuff. So I'm actually going back through Hibaloma and expanding a little bit more at the ending, and I'm gonna add a little bit more to the end to where I ended up before. I'm adding a little bit more, and also just I'm expanding a little bit just to give it a little bit more of a runtime because I feel like it was definitely a little bit rushed. But that's kind of the point of the origin stories is we kind of time hop and just get the information you need to know. We expand where we need to, and we don't overindulge. Um, that being said, I do still plan on working on um, multiple other origin stories, which are going to rest at about that 100-page um, length, except I'm going to keep it less time jumpy. I'm going to pick up with the characters and give them about 10 chapters to develop and get to where we leave them off as, but I'm also going to avoid what I did with Impurity and Hibaloma, which is basically start further in the timeline line, and then catch up with the character and then join their perspective. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to start these other stories at their perspective. They might be a little shorter, they might be a little longer, but I'll see how that all goes. It doesn't really matter because each one of the stories, the origins books, are all going to be compiled into their own individual book, which is the Origins Anthology. So it would be Vengeance Origins Anthology, essentially. So I don't know exactly how I'm gonna, or it's gonna be Origins Anthology, Vengeance Stories, or something. I don't know how I'm gonna do it, but yeah, that's what I plan on doing. So that's probably gonna be about a 500-page book, 400 or 500-page book on its own, which will be multiple stories that I'm not including Transgression in because to me that is a prequel story, not an origin story. Even though technically I have labeled it as Origins. We'll see how that goes. Nothing's ever finite. So, anyways, that's an update really quickly of what I've been struggling with. Thank you guys for your support, and I will see you later.